What's up YouTube? It's your boy Isma coming back to you with another TryHackMe video. And today I'm working on protocols and servers 2. We'll be learning about attacks against passwords in clear text traffic and explore options for mitigation via SSH and SSL and TSL. The protocols and servers room covered many protocols: Telnet, HTTP, FTP, SMTP, POP3, and IMAP. Servers implementing these protocols are subject to different kinds of attacks. To name a few, consider sniffing attack, network packet capture, man-in-the-middle attack, password attack, authentication attack, vulnerabilities. From security perspective, we always need to think about what we aim to protect. Consider the security trait confidentiality, integrity, and availability, or CIA. Confidentiality refers to keeping the contents of communication accessible to the intended party's integrity. Integrity is the idea of assuring any data sent is accurate, consistent, and complete when reaching its destination. And finally, availability refers to being able to access the service when we need it. Different parties will put varying emphasis on these three. For instance, confidentiality will be highest priority for an intelligence agency. Online banking will put most emphasis on the integrity of transactions. Availability is of the highest importance for any platform making money by serving ads. Knowing that we are protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, CIA and attack aims to cause disclosure, alteration, and destruction, or DAD. The figures below reflects this. So once again, you have the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and the disclosure, alteration, and destruction. These attacks directly affect the security of the system. For instance, network packets capture violates confidentiality and leads to the disclosure for information. A successful password attack can also lead to disclosure. On the other hand, a man-in-the-middle MITM attack breaks the system's integrity as it can alter the communication data. We will focus on these three attacks in this room as these attacks are integral to the protocol design and server implementation. Vulnerabilities are of a broader spectrum, and exploited vulnerabilities have different impacts on the target system. For instance, exploiting a denial of service DOS vulnerability can affect the system's availability, while exploiting a remote code execution RSC vulnerability can lead to more severe damages. It is important to note that vulnerability by itself creates risk. Damage can occur only when the vulnerability is exploited. We don't cover vulnerabilities in this room as they have their own module, vulnerability research. This room will focus on a protocol can be upgraded or replaced to protect against disclosure and alteration. Protecting the confidentiality and integrity of the transmitted data, we will be recommending other modules that cover additional topics. Moreover, we introduce Hydra to find a weak password. We suggest that you start the attack box in a virtual machine as you proceed to tackle the following task. You can connect to the different services over the Telnet or Netcat for better practice and learning experience. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Start the attack box and start the machine. Moving on to task number 2, sniffing attack. Sniffing attack refers to using a network packet capture tool to collect information about the target. When a protocol communication in clear text, the data exchange can be captured by a third party to analyze. A simple network packet capture can reveal information such as the content of private messages and login credentials. If the data isn't encrypted in the transit, a sniffing attack can be conducted using Ethernet 802.3. Network card provides that the user has proper permission, root permission on Linux, and administrator privileges on MS Windows. There are many programs available to capture network packets. We consider the following. TCP dump is a free open source command line interface, or CLI, program that has been ported to work on many operating systems. Wireshark is a free open source graphic user interface, or GUIA, program available for several operating systems including Linux, Mac OS, and MS Windows. And T-Shark is a CLI alternative to Wireshark. There are several specialized tools for capturing passwords and even complete messages. However, this can still be achieved by TCP dump and Wireshark with some added effort. Consider a user checking his email messages using POP3. First, we are going to use TCP dump to attempt to capture the username and password in terminal output below. We use the command sudo TCP dump port 110/A, capital A, Before explaining this command, we should mention that this attack requires access to the network traffic. For example, via a wiretap or a switch with port mirroring actively, we can access the traffic exchange if we launch a successful man-in-the-middle attack. We need sudo as a packet capture requires root privileges. We wanted to limit the number of captures and displayed packets to those exchanged with POP3 server. We know that POP3 uses port 110, so we filtered out packets to using port 110. Finally, we wanted to display the content of capturing packets in ASCII format, so we added /A, capital A. And this is what it's talking about right here. Let's see what happens to mine. So from the looks of it, this is the the username, Frank. And the password is this one right here. In the terminal output above, we have removed the unimportant packets to help you better focus on the ones that matter. In particular, the username and password were each sent in their own packet. First packet explicitly displays user Frank, while the last packet reveals password D2XC9CGD. We could also use Wireshark to achieve the same results. In Wireshark window below, we can see that we have entered POP in the filtered field. Now that we've filtered just the traffic we're interested in, we can see the username and password we've captured. Here's the example that it's giving us. So you have the username and password. In a brief protocol that uses clear text communication and susceptible to this kind of attack, The only requirement for this attack to succeed is to access to a system between the two communication systems. This attack requires attention. The mitigation lies in adding an encryption layer on top of any network protocol, in particular transport layer security. TSL has been added to HTTP, FTP, or SMTP, POP3, IMAP, and many others for remote access. Telnet has been replaced by the secure alternative Secure Shell. If you would like to learn more about Wireshark, we recommend the Wireshark Wireshark 101 room. What do you need to add the command sudo TCP dump to capture only telnet traffic? This is interesting right here. I believe it's port 10. Alright, so for the first question, the answer is port 23. Moving on to the next one, what is the simplest display filter you can use with Wireshark to show only IMAP traffic? And that's IMAP. Moving on to task 3, man in the middle attack. A man in the middle attack occurs when a victim A believes they are communicating with a legitimate destination B, but is unknowingly communicating with an attacker E. In the figure below, we have A requesting the transfer of 20 to M. However, E altered this message and replaced the original value with a new one. B receives the modified message and acted on it. So you have this communication that it's talking about right here, and E is the man in the middle, as you could tell. So it's transfer 20 to M, and then right here you have transfer 2000 to M. This attack is relatively simple to carry out if the two parties do not confirm the authenticity and integrity of each message. In some cases, the chosen protocol does not provide secure authentication or integrity checking. Moreover, some protocols have inherent securities that make them susceptible to this kind of attack. Anytime you browse over HTTP, you are susceptible. Sorry guys, I'm gonna have to go look this up. How do you pronounce this stuff? Susceptible to a man in the middle attack. And the scary thing is that you cannot recognize it. Many tools would aid you in carrying out such an attack, such as EtherCap and BetterCap. Man in the middle attack can also affect other clear text protocols such as FTP, SMTP, and POP3. Mitigation against this attack requires the use of cryptography. The solution lies in proper authentication along with encryption or singing of the exchanged messages with the help of public key infrastructure. PKI and the Trusted Root Certificates Transported Layer Security TLS protects from man in the middle attacks. How many different interfaces does EtherCap offer? Alright guys, moving on to task number 5, Secure Shell. And I'm just going to start my attack box and go ahead and start my machine. Now let's get to it. Task 5, Secure Shell. Secure Shell was created to provide a secure way for remote system administration. In other words, it lets you securely connect to another system over the network and execute commands on the remote system. Put simply, the S in SSH stands for secure, which can be summarized simply as: you can confirm the identity of the remote server, exchanged messages are encrypted and can only be decrypted by the intended recipient. Both sides can detect any modification in the messages. The above 3 points are ensured by cryptography. In more technical terms, they are part of the confidentiality and integrity made possible through the proper use of different encryption algorithms. To use SSH, you need an SSH server and an SSH client. The SSH server listens on port 22 by default. The SSH client can authenticate using a username and password, a private and public key, after the SSH server is configured to recognize the corresponding public key. On Linux, macOS, and Windows builds after 2018, you can connect to an SSH server using the following command: SSH username at the IP address. This command will try to connect to the server of an IP address, which mine is 10.10.236.12, with the login name, username. If an SSH server is listening on the default port, it will ask you to provide the password for username. Once authenticated, the user will have access to the target server's terminal. The terminal output below is an example of using SSH to access a Debian Linux server. In the example, also, as you can tell right here, that's how it did it. It has SSH, the username, which they're using, Mark at 10.10.236.12. In the example above, we issue the command SSH mark at IP address. Then once we enter the correct password, we got access to the remote system terminal. SSH is very reliable for remote administration because our username and password were sent encrypted. Moreover, all commands were executed on the remote system will be sent over an encrypted channel. Note that if this is the first time we connect to this system, we will need to confirm the fingerprints of the SSH server public key to avoid man-in-the-middle attack. As explained earlier, man-in-the-middle attack takes place when a malicious party, E, situates itself between A and B, and communicates with A pretending to be B, and communicates with B pretending to be A. While A and B think that they are communicating directly with each other. In the case of SSH, we don't usually have a third party to check if the public key is valid, so we need to do this manually. This attack is shown in the image below. We can use SSH to transfer the files using SCP, Secure Copy Protocol, based on the SSH protocol. An example of the syntax is as follows: SCP mark 10.10.236.12/home/mark/archive/tar.gc, and this symbol right here. This command will copy a final name archive.tar.gc from the remote system located in /home/mark directory to this symbol, the root of the home directory of the currently logged in user. Another example is cp backup.tar.bc2 mark at IP address /home/mark dot. This command will copy the file backup.tar.bc2 from the local system to the directory /home/mark/ on the remote system. And right here is an example of what it's talking about. Also, closing note, FTP could be secured using SSL/TLS by using FTP protocols, which uses port 990. It is worth mentioning that FTP can also be secured using the SSH protocol, which is the SFTP protocol by default. This service listens on port 22, just like SSH. Now guys, we're going to be moving on to answer the question below. Alright guys, so based on the research I just did, it's a DOT, and that is the 3-letter acronym of the DNS protocol that uses TLS. Alright guys, moving on to answer the questions below. Use SSH to connect to 10.10.236.12 as marked with password XBTC49AB using username /r. Find the kernel release. So a simple way to do that I found out is you just do this right here. So you basically, well, I'm gonna copy and paste this one right here. So edit, paste. So you put SSH mark at IP address and the uname /r. It's gonna ask you for the password. You're gonna type in XBTC 49 AB. You're gonna hit enter, and there it is. Moving on to the next one. This is how you're gonna want to do it. So it's gonna be so the next one is use SSH to download the file book.txt from the remote system. How many kilobytes did SCP display as a download size? So you'll type in SSH mark at your IP address. Sorry about that. So what I'm trying to show you is this right here, the top one. So it's basically just how you'll do it right there. So SCP mark at IP address, this symbol right here, /home/mark/book.txt, and this squiggly line right here. And it's going to prompt you for the password. So you're going to type in XBTC49AB, enter, and it's 415. And that's how you do that one. So now we're going to move on to task 6, password attack. So we discussed network packet captures and man in the middle attacks. as well as how these attacks could be mitigated using TLS, SSH. The third type, the third type of attack that we will cover in this room is password attack. Many protocols require you to authenticate. Authentication is proving who you claim to be. Excuse me. When we are using protocols such as POP3, we should not be given access to the mailbox before verifying our identity. The POP3 example from Protocols and Service Room is repeated below for your convenience. In this example, we are identified as the user Frank, and the server authenticated us because we provided the correct password. In other words, the password is one way to authentication. So here's an example: telnet at IP address at port 110. As for our username, we give it the password, and it lets us log in. Authentication or proving your identity can be achieved through one of the following or a combination of two. Something you know, such as password and PIN code. Number two, something you have, such as SIM card, RFID card, and USB dongle. And three, something you are, such as fingerprints and iris. This task will focus on attacks against passwords. Something that the target knows. If you revisit the communication with several options servers using protocols such as Telnet, SSH, POP3, and IMAP, we always need passwords to gain access based on the 150 million usernames and passwords leaked from the Adobe breach in 2013. The top 10 passwords are 123456 and 1234567889. Password Adobe 123, 1234567, QWERTY, and 12345667, and 1111111. Photoshop 123123. Only two passwords are related to Adobe and its products, but the rest are generic. You might think that this has changed over the past decade. However, 123456, 12345667, 12345678, and 123456789 are still common choice for many users. Others haven't realized yet that QWERTY is not secret, and it's used by many and as their passwords. Attacks against passwords are usually carried out by password guessing. Guessing a password requires some knowledge of the target, such as their pet's name and birth year. Dictionary attack. This approach expands on password guessing and attempts to include all valid words in a dictionary or a word list. And three, brute force attack. This attack is the most exhaustive and time-consuming, where an attacker can go as far as trying all possible character combinations, which grows fast, exponential growth with the numbers of characters. Let's focus on a directory attack. Over time, hackers have compiled lists after containing leaked passwords from data breaches. One example is RockU's list of breach passwords, which you can find on the attack box at /usr/share/wordlist and /rocku.txt. So I'm gonna go ahead and try that. I'm gonna try and type this in. The choice of the word list should depend on your knowledge of the target. For instance, a French user might use a French word instead of an English one. Consequently, a French word list might be more promising. We want an automated way to try common passwords or the entries from a word list. Here comes THC Hydra. Hydra supports many protocols including FTP, POP3, IMAP, SMTP, SSH, and all methods related to HTTP. General command line is Hydra/1 username/p wordlist.txt service, where we specify the following options. /1 username /1 should precede the username, the login name of the target, /p wordlist.txt /p precedes the wordlist.txt while file, which is a text file containing the list of passwords. You want to try it with the provided username. Server is the host name or IP address of the target server. Service indicates the service you are trying to launch the directory attacked. Consider the following concrete examples. Hydra/1 mark/p /usr/share/wordlist/rocku.txt 10.10.236 FTP. I'm going to try typing that in on mine, see what happens. Might be passwords. It looks like it gave me I'm going to try opening this. Anyways, so oh look, popped up. Looks like it was not found. We'll use mark as the username as it iterates over the provided password against the FTP server. Hydra/1 mark/p/usr/share/wordlist/rocku.txt FTP //IP address is identical to the previous example. The IP address FTP is the same as FTP :// IP address. Hydra/1 frank/p/user/share/wordlist/rocku.txt at IP address SSH. We'll use Frank as the username as it tries to log in via SSH using different passwords. There are some extra optional arguments that you can add. /s port to specify a non-default port for the service in question. /v or /v capital V for verbose. Make Hydra shows the username and password combinations that are being tried. This verbosity is very convenient to see the progress, especially if you are still not confident of your command line syntax. /t and n, where n is the number of parallel connections to the target. /t 16 will create 16 threads used to connect to the target. /d for debugging, to get more details information about what's going on. The debugging output can save you much frustration. For instance, if Hydra tries to connect to a closed port and timing out, /d will reveal this right away. Once the password is found, you can issue Control-C to end the process in TryHackMe task. We expected any attack to finish within less than 5 minutes. However, the attack would usually take longer in real-life scenarios. Option for verbosity or debugging can be pretty helpful if you want Hydra to update you about its progress. In summary, attacks against login systems can be carried out efficiently using a tool such as THC, Hydra combined with a suitable word list. Mitigation against such attacks can be sophisticated and depends on the target system. A few of the approaches include password policy. Enforces minimum complexity constraints on the passwords set by the user. And account lockout. Locks the account after a certain number of failed attempts. Throttling authentication attempts. Delays the response to login attempts. A couple of seconds of delay is tolerable for someone who knows the password, but they can severely hinder automated tools. Using CAPTCHA requires solving questions difficult for machine. It works well if the login page is via a graphic user interface. Note that CAPTCHA stands for Completely Automated Public Turing Test to tell computers and human apart, requiring the use of public certificate for authentication. This approach works well with SSH, for instance. Two-factor authentication. Ask the user to provide a code available via other means such as email, smartphone app, or SMS. There are many other approaches that are more sophisticated or might require some established knowledge about the user, such as IP-based geolocation. Using combination of the above approaches is an excellent approach to protect against password attacks. We learned that one of the email account is lazy. What is the password used to access IMAP service on 10.10? 236.12. Alright guys, so to answer the question below, this is what you're gonna have to do. You're gonna have to type in Hydra /L space lazy space /P space /USR /share /wordlist /rockyou.txt space 10 at your IP address space IMAP. Then you'll hit enter, and it does take some time for the machine to attack. But when it finally does, it will populate this right here, which is the password butterfly, and then you just type that in and you're all set. So moving on to the final task summary. This room covered various protocols, their usage, and how they work under the hood. 3 common attacks are sniffing attack, man-in-the-middle attack, password attack. For each of the above, we focus both on the attack details and mitigation steps. Many other attacks can be conducted against specific servers and protocols. We will provide a list of some related modules. Vulnerability research. This module provides more information about vulnerabilities and exploits. Metasploit. This module trains you on how to use Metasploit to exploit target systems. Burp Sweep. This module teaches you how to use Burp Sweep to intercept HTTP traffic and launch attacks related to web. It's good to remember the default port number for common protocols. For convenience, the services we covered are listed in the following table sorted by alphabetical order. So here you go. You have FTP at port 21, applications, file transfer, clear text. And I'm not going to read this, but I'm just going to let you do it. So Hydra remains a very efficient tool that you can launch from a terminal to try the different passwords. We summarize it in main options in the following table. So option /1 username provides the login name. /p wordlist.txt specify the password list to use. Server service set the server and server address and the service to attack. /s port use in case of non-default service port number. /v or /v and capital V shows the username and password combinations being tried, and /d displays debugging output if the verbose output is not helping. Answer the question below. By now you have completed the 8th room of network security module. Please proceed to the final room of this module to test your skills. And we have finished. Congratulations, guys.